Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Windy City Breakdown. Tony Andracki here, joined by Andy Martínez and Kyle Millinowisch, and special guest on today's pod, Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs. Eugene, thanks for joining us, man.
Long overdue, my brother. Thank you guys for having me, man.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, so we got to get into just talking about the Cubs. We're going to reflect on some 2016 stuff because, Gene, I know you covered that. That's really where you and I got to know each other most, is that 2016 season. No better time to do it than the 10-year anniversary here. But we got to focus on the 2026 team a little bit. They haven't been good. They've won only 8 of their last 30 games. Like, it has not gone well. We've talked about it, I feel like, a lot in this pod, but Eugene, I'm really curious your thoughts. What do you think is going on with this team? Why the drastic up and down roller coaster of they were the best team in baseball for a month, and now they've been the worst team in baseball for a month, and they finally had like a good win Thursday in Colorado to finish up that series?
Man, I think that lineup, man. It's a good lineup when everybody's hitting. But we've talked about this numerous times this year, Tony. They do not have one guy. I don't think there's one guy in that lineup that anybody on the opposite team is afraid of. At least when you look at last year's team, and they rented Kyle Tucker for a year. He had a terrible second half, but at least that first half, when the team was struggling, he was able to kind of put them on his back and carry them a little. They don't have that guy this year, and I think even more. I think when you look around baseball and I think it's a league-wide thing. When you got a bunch of guys, specifically when you look at the Cubs and you look up and down that lineup, they don't have any power guys. And yeah, Jed will say, well, yeah, PCA hit 30 home runs. Michael Bush hit 30 home runs. Happer and who else? And Dansby hit 24 and 25. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. But those guys, they're not power guys. That's a profile thing. You got guys swinging for the fences. So when you look around at the batting average, which is something that has become less and less of a factor as time moves on, you got guys hitting 180 and 220 and 230. And it's like guys with runners in scoring positions. I think it's just all come to a head right now where it's like 80% of the starting pitching staff is down. Well, now 100. All 5 of those guys have had IL stints. Then you look at the pen. They've been down, starting with 3 or 4 guys that were down from the beginning. Then to top it off, no one's hitting, and it's like that's just the cherry on top now. So I think guys start, what were they, 27 and 12? They started out 27 and 12, and now they're winless. Yeah. In their last 11 series? Is it 11 series or 12? So yeah,
I think it's 10 series. Yeah,
10 series. So it's just all come to a head now, and specifically when they were used to, okay, if the pitching is down, then at least the lineup will carry them. Flip side, if the lineup is down, then the staff will carry them. Now no one's able to carry each side. Each side is it's just been a tumultuous almost first half, man. And they say it's a lot of baseball left, but time is ticking, man. The Milwaukee Brewers are. I thought this was going to be another year with those guys this was going to be the year when it was finally like, okay, maybe the Brewers will finally just become the Brewers that everybody thought they were. But Pat Murphy's got it clicking over there. So they need to pick it up. Some's got to know. I don't know if the hitting coaches are on the hot seat. People are calling for Craig to be on the hot seat. And I'm like, well, neither, Craig Counsell ain't swinging no bat, and he's not throwing no pitches. So I just think those guys need to pick it up, and I think they will. Once the weather turns, I think we'll see that a little bit of that ball club that we saw those first 40 games of the season.
Yeah, it's tricky because, I'm not 100% sure what to make of this team. I don't think when they were as good as they were, when they were 15 games above 500, I didn't think they were, that good. I knew they were good, but I didn't think they were that good. And this last month, I'm like, well, they're not this bad. But also, maybe they are this bad. I don't know what to make of them. And that's what's so weird about. But you're right about the lineup thing is the thing to me that I think is, just the most concerning, because I think back, and I've mentioned it to these guys on this podcast, how do you replace Kyle Tucker? How do you replace Kyle Tucker? Well, for a month, you had the replacement with Ballesteros and how great he was doing. But you don't have that anymore, and you don't have that fear. And I remember even in the playoffs against Milwaukee, against San Diego, you mentioned it. Kyle Tucker wasn't hitting and he wasn't doing well. but you're still afraid of him, or you're still like, all right, don't let that guy beat us because that guy can beat us. There was still that threat in the lineup. And I think of like the last two teams before Colorado that the Cubs played, they don't have great records, the Giants or the A's, but they have Nick Kurtz in the middle of the lineup. They have Rafael Devers. They have Jung-Hoo Lee was hitting really, really hot. Like, you have guys that you're like, all right, well, that guy can't beat us. When you look at the Cubs lineup, it's like, all right, we'll take our chances that PCA will beat us, or we'll take our chances that Michael Busch will beat us, because they're not these offensive forces that just carry a lineup. And that's kind of what we're seeing.
And I think that's what Jed was banking on, to be honest with you guys, that PCA was gonna come back and be that guy immediately for the team. And I'm not mad at him. You know, you throw $100+ million at a guy, and you know, PCA is that guy. I think eventually he will get there, but that's a lot to throw on a guy. I don't know what the conversation was that they had coming into the season, but I'm pretty much banking on them. They thought that, or they were hoping that PCA could be that guy that, you know, but even his profile, like, and these are words that I'm not really fine. I think, you know what, and this is another conversation we can have here or, you know, off record, but I think there's so much the stance. I think analytics, man. I think it's just the game has become so analytical that I think it's taken away. Even when you look around the league, man, when you look at guys like Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado, when you just look at their numbers, like impact is one thing, numbers is another. I just think the whole analytics and the player profiles and the way that they have these guys swinging for the fences, it's either home run or nothing. I think it's affected the game as a whole, but specifically when you look at the Cubs, who just do not have a power bat in that lineup, it's eventually, like Andy said, it's like, yeah, obviously they're not that bad. But were they really that good? Like you said, 27-12, everybody comes into the season hot, and, you know, eventually they were going to cool off. So, yeah, man, right now, needs to be some furniture moving in that clubhouse, because they even look at Nico Hoerner, you know, he doesn't even, something looks off. Nico, even when he's struggling, he never looks off. He looks off right now, bro. He looks off. And even Alex Bregman, this is something that, you know, my guys, they'll DM me, all my Cubs fans, homies, they DM me, they're asking me about Alex Bregman. And I'm like, well, if you go back to Houston, Alex Bregman was just a really good player on a team with a bunch of really good players. Like, he never carried the Houston Astros. He was able to fit in with Correa and Alvarez and Altuve and all those other guys. So I don't know why y'all thought he was going to come to the Cubs and be the guy. Kyle Tucker, exactly, man. You know, so I'm with you, Andy. I don't think they're not this bad, you know, but I mean, no. Didn't they have the toughest schedule in baseball to start this season?
They did, but that was when they went 15 games above 500, and then they got this easy stretch, or quote unquote easy stretch, right? They got the A's, the Giants, and the Rockies, and they've lost all three series. Like,
yeah, their entire June schedule until they play their entire June schedule until they play the Brewers at the end of the month is below 500 teams. It's pretty nuts. Like,
and it's on pace to not have a winning record the way it's going.
Right. So, Gene, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about Bregman in a second, but you brought up Nico Hoerner. So, Kyle, do you have the numbers? I saw you smiling during it. So, Gene, Kyle and I have kind of had this debate this week. Do you remember when Nico got hit in the head in the last game in San Diego? Is that right, Kyle? Forget the exact date.
Yeah, April 30th.
April 30th, last game in San Diego. Got hit in the head. He kind of did like a pretend wobble thing, and he was smiling and laughing. But there's like a narrative online that his numbers are a lot worse from that. I don't think that played any role at all. But Kyle, do you have those numbers right now?
I do, yeah. So this was from a couple of days ago, but you could take I think yesterday's game and Wednesday's game out of the equation. So the 31 games before he got hit in the head, he was slashing 291, 370, 449, which is an 819 OPS, 4 homers. And then the 35 games after he got hit in the head, he's slashing 206, 292, 250 with a 542 OPS with no homers and only 7 RBIs. I'm more playing into it for the online narrative just to like kind of fuck around. I truthfully don't know if it's like, if that's the straw that is like stirring this slump, but it's interesting enough, right? To think like I know that was such a bad euphemism. Great word though.
Is this the
Like, do you think?
I was
Yes.
gonna say,
Do you think this is the reason that Nico's slumping? Or
is this the Chris Bryant effect? You remember that back in Colorado?
Maybe.
Th-
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Eugene. I knew I liked you. This is what. So I brought up the Chris Bryant in Colorado. Yeah, that was what 2019, I think, or
Yeah,
I believe that was 2019. And then people online were talking about Sammy getting hit in the head years ago and slumping after that. So it's like, and then obviously Rizzo a couple years ago, he didn't get hit in the head at the plate, but he got hit in the head in the field. I think it was Fernando Tatis Jr. And then he slumped after that. What do you think about all this? Do you think that's the straw that stirred the slump?
Hey, brother. It's a common theme here, right? So you have to take it into consideration at least, you know? And like I said, man, I've never seen, even just watch Nico, just watch him. I've never seen him with his head down. Like, I've seen him with his head down several times over the past 2 weeks. I just watch him. He'll line hit, ground into a double play, line out, barrel up, can't find a hole, comes back to the dugout with his head down. And this is just something that I've never seen before. Maybe I haven't been looking that close, but for the past 2 weeks, and I was going to ask him, I wanted to find a way to ask him, just be blunt with him.
No, we lost Eugene.
Lost Gene for a minute. But yeah, what he's talking about is right on about like Nico. I feel like in a lot of ways like embodies what the Cubs are going through, and he does look like he's been more frustrated, I feel like, and more like emotive than I've seen Nico over the last couple of years. And I think that's just a testament to what the Cubs are going through and like the struggles and like, he is getting frustrated. And we always have seen it from PCA, but like you see the way it's wearing on these guys. And say it hit that big grand slam yesterday. We're recording Friday morning, so yesterday, Thursday, and Nico goes over and gives him like a big hug in the dugout. You saw Nico explode in late May to end the 10-game winning streak when Ian Happ had that big homer late in the game, and it's like he was one of the guys exploding in the dugout, and like you see the weight being lifted off these guys' shoulders. They do care. I think there's some fans that think these guys don't give a shit or whatever. I think that's totally misplaced, but like these guys care absolutely. You see it. You see the way that it impacts them and the way that they're carrying their emotions. And it is really interesting for a guy like Nico, who is normally not showing his emotions on the field, to be showing them over the stretch. I think it just shows how much it's wearing on these guys.
It's interesting that I was looking it up just now. His BABIP, his batting average on balls in play since May 1st is 216. He's obviously a contact guy, right? So like the fact that he's just getting some crummy luck too to go with it. It's like doubling down. It's creating this like trickle down effect. Like even if he is making contact, it's finding defense, it's finding gloves, and it's finding defenders. But he is kind of like I feel like he's been the poster child of the Cubs offense this season, right? Like when they were going well, he was performing way above and beyond what was probably expected from him. And if you think about like at the beginning of the season, right, he was hitting home runs, and Tony, your preseason prediction was like he's going to hit 15 home runs. And I remember I was like, you're full of it. Like that's not going to happen. And then the first month in, I'm like, 15 might be too low. And now it's like
right away. Yeah.
Right. And now it's like,
40.
is he going to, yeah, it's like, is he going to hit double digits now? It's like, it's kind
and he
of
hasn't
emblematic
homered
of,
in like 6 weeks. Yeah.
right. So it's emblematic
Since
of
he
like
got hit
what
in the
the Cubs
head.
offense is, right? Yeah. I've stayed out of this argument. I don't know. Like we'll never know the real answer about that, just because I think even if it is affecting him, if you ask Nico, he's never going to admit it, right? And like it's so hard to know like whether one way, like sure the numbers prove it, but like is that a direct correlation? I don't know.
I'm not. I can tell you right now, it is not.
Go ahead, take it away.
It's not, because the next couple games after that, he went like 3 for 6 with a couple of doubles right immediately following. He was fine in the moment. They check everybody out in all professional sports for concussions or concussion-like symptoms or anything. They go in hard on these guys to make sure that they are safe and that their head is safe and all of that. If the Cubs had any concern, even 1%, they would have given him a breather, whatever. They didn't have any concern. He was laughing and joking around immediately after. Like I don't think it correlates, and so I don't think his vision's like impaired. I don't think his head was impacting him. Like I don't think I don't think it had any impact. I think what's been going on with Nico is a lot of bad luck, and we just saw it. I mean, he ripped a ball, almost took the third baseman's head off in yesterday's game, the finale in Colorado. He's had, a few lineouts. I think he had 1 or 2 lineouts to right field in Colorado. He's hitting the ball hard.
Mm-hmm.
His expected batting average is like 290 plus on his Baseball Savant page, among the top, I think, 10% in the league. So he has, the top 5 or 10% expected batting average. He's hitting the ball hard. He's just hitting it on the ground lately. That's been a big concern for sure. And he's hit into some bad luck. I think that's part of what's been happening for him. So I don't think it's correlated. I know Kyle's just messing around. I don't think he really thinks either that like it was a hit in the head. I know our friend Zoe Grossman does think that. So Zoe's wrong again. Classic. But yeah, I think that it's, use the word, Andy, emblematic. Like really, you can take
Great
Nico
word.
over the last, it is a great word. Take Nico over the last like 30 games, and it is very emblematic of the Cubs. It's a microcosm of the Cubs' overall issues. Some bad luck, some poor performance, like can't hit the ball on the ground as much as he is, and it's just not going well. And it's just surprised a lot of people. It surprised, I think, all of us when the team was 27-12, and you're like, yeah, they're just going to roll. And now they have it. And it's been kind of crazy just the way that this is all played out. Jim Deshaies said it best on the marquee broadcast on Thursday. He's like, I've been around baseball. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I do not remember a season quite like this.
Yeah,
It is kind
I
of
think it's
insane.
like. Go ahead.
No,
Kyle,
it is.
go ahead,
I was going to
sorry.
say, because when he said that yesterday, I thought the same thing. Not that I don't have anywhere near the experience of JD, but like obviously just watching the Cubs religiously for the past 30 years, like you've never seen a season like this. 2 10-game winning streaks, a 10-game losing streak, all in their their first 39 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's 2 10-game winning streaks in their first 39 games. It was just, even that in itself is like, wow, that's crazy. Then they dropped 10 in a row, and now I know they haven't had a losing streak more than I guess 4 or 5 since then, but it's like they're not, their winning streak or their win percentage is probably like in the 30s. It's really just insane. I don't know if you wanted to get back to the pace or how they're playing, Andy, but I wanted to bring up a quick Nico stat before we jump to that. And this is from
Go for it.
going off what you were saying, like him hitting the ball on the ground a lot. This is from Carson Wolf. He quote tweeted one of our Nico tweets. Said in Nico's first 33 games, his line drive percentage was 25% and his ground ball percentage was 33%. In his last 33 games, his line drive percentage is 21%, which is obviously a little dip, not crazy, but his ground ball percentage is 48%. So that's a 15% increase in ground ball percentage. So yeah, obviously, if you hit the ball on the ground, it's less likely to get a hit. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a big reason as for why he's slumping. I mean, yeah, I could wink, joke. Is it a coincidence that he's hitting the ball on the ground because he got hit in the head? Maybe, but honest, who the fuck knows? And that literally could just
It's
be
the straw that stirs the drink, or whatever you said.
It's the straw that stirs a slump, dude. You've never heard that
Yeah.
phrase?
No, I haven't heard half the phrases that come into your mouth because they're just like amalgamations of other phrases that have like come together.
You know what you know what I think it is when I'm like trying
No.
to come up with a phrase? It's like the chase and base thing where it's like spin front half of the phrase and then spin just a back
Yeah.
half of another phrase, and then it's like, damn, skip phrase. That's exactly what's going on.
It's funny though because I used to mess phrases up a lot. I feel like I still do sometimes, but Amy, my wife, for anybody not familiar, like she used to have a list in her phone years ago when we first started dating of all the phrases that I would mess up, and I would have like I said like a sheep in wolf's clothing, which is the opposite of what it is. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and the whole point is the wolf then gets embedded within the sheep and then can attack the sheep. But I kept saying sheep in wolf's clothing, and I was like, but that makes sense to me in my head because the sheep is trying to escape, and they're in part of like the wolf pack or whatever, and they're using the disguise to their advantage. But that was one of the phrases that she laughed at me and wrote down that I messed up for a while. And like, I legitimately thought that it was like a sheep in wolf's clothing for a number of years. So you're not alone in that, Kyle, I'll say.
Don't tell me that one. That one I can't even understand. I'm too dumb. I'm flying below that one. I can't even use that one incorrectly.
One quick point
Sorry,
on
Andy.
the Nico thing too is the dude's not striking out at all, which is really weird that he hasn't had a strikeout in like 2.5 weeks, which is kind of nuts. And his stretch since he got hit, I forget exactly what it is now, because I looked it up a couple of days ago, but it was something like since he got hit in the head, it's like 15 walks to 6 strikeouts over the last month, a little over, which is like, that to me tells me that's not a guy that's searching for it. It's not a guy who doesn't have control of the strike zone. It's not a guy who's having trouble seeing the ball. It just hasn't been working out for him. And as you said, he's just hitting the ball on the ground too much. I think there's a relatively easy adjustment, the ball on the ground. It's very hard to do in the middle of the season. I say easy like I could do it. I can't do it. But like, it's, you can get back to the line drive swing that you had earlier in the season if you're a guy like Nico. And I think you will. I think guys go through slumps. It's just when Nico goes through slumps, it's not like he chases a bunch or swings and misses a bunch. It's, maybe he has some weaker contact, hits the ball on the ground, that kind of stuff. All right, looks like we got Eugene back. Eugene, can you hear us?
I can hear you, man. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the connection over here. But you got, it's been
all good. We've had.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we had some connection issues and stuff earlier when we first started. But yeah, we solved Nico while you were gone. He just is hitting the ball on the ground too much, and that's pretty much it. And that Kyle is right with all his phrases always.
I do think he's running to a string of bad luck though, like you said. I think they all have. Going back to the beginning of the convo, it's just. It's just that time. It's weird. It's strange. We've all seen a lot of baseball, and it's definitely strange. But you really just got to stick to the script, continue to put the work in, and eventually things will change. But again, I'm with Andy. They're not that bad. I think they're much better than what they're showing.
I want to ask all of you guys because I'm curious. Have you guys ever seen essentially 9-10 guys slump all at the same time? Because like that's kind of what this is, right?
May of 2023, the Cubs.
Oh.
Well, okay, all right.
Yeah.
That was the first. Okay. But like, I think what makes it weird is like that team. Even going into the year, I know the internal expectations from the Cubs was like, oh yeah, we're gonna compete. But like they were coming off 21 and 22, where it was like, and there wasn't a clear path to wins where you thought like, all right, 2023 is rebuilding. So when May happened, you kind of just chalked it up as like, all right, this is just not a good team or whatever. This is a team that was supposed to be really good and winning the division and competing for an NL pennant and going to the World Series type of thing. And all 9 guys are slumping. And I think that's what makes it dramatic. But like usually you see like 2 or 3 guys, maybe 4 or 5 guys at a time slumping. To see like essentially, and I know it's kind of harsh on Michael Busch and PCA, who was just player of the week, but like basically this whole lineup has been slumping for about a month now.
We lost him again. We'll keep going because I have a thought on this.
Go ahead.
Ask me the question. You asked me the question.
Well, no, I was going to say, like, have you guys ever seen this many guys slump at once?
No.
Besides May of 2023.
Oh, he's back. Here we go. Maybe. There we go. He's back. Maybe.
Oh, good. That size says it all. Technology is great sometimes. Yeah.
I'm here, man.
All right.
Gene, I'll start with you then. Have you ever seen this many guys all slump at one time, especially on a team with this kind of expectation?
Well, Tony's got a better memory than me because I can't even remember that 23 team. But I don't think so, man. Especially with a bunch of guys who are really good. Like when you look up and down that lineup, there are really no holes. I'm really surprised at how bad Dansby Swanson. I'm just really surprised at how bad Dansby Swanson has struggled, man. Like. I'm dumbfounded, to be honest with you, man. Like, and when we saw Moses Ballesteros, like Mo Barlow, nobody expected him to come out blazing like that. Yeah, we expected him to come in, be a threat, and be a guy that could, hold himself down. But I didn't expect him to go on that month-long streak.
Yeah. All right. Just when he was getting rolling, we lost him again. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe we'll have to try this another time with Eugene, but yeah, it's the fact that they are all slumping kind of, yes, outside of PCA and Busch, but to you guys' point earlier, they're not the type of guy that are like carrying a team. That's not the hot starts that they've been on. PCA had that big game on, was that Saturday against the Giants at Wrigley Field, that he carried the team for that one day. But other than that, like Busch, is not hitting 3-run homers all the time, and PCA is playing really good defense still, and running the bases and doing his thing. And they've been really impactful, hitting 1 and 3 most of the time for the last couple of weeks. But they need other guys around them to drive them in or to drive in, and it just hasn't been playing out that way because you have Bregman hitting in the middle of them or right behind them, or Nico Hoerner or Ballesteros or whoever. And yeah, Andy, you're right. I mean, you have like 6 or 7 guys who are all going through a slump at the same time and have been. This is an extended slump. I mean, Nico's in the worst slump of his career. Dansby's having the worst 2.5 months to start a season of his career. Probably the worst 2.5 months at any point of a season in his career. I can't imagine when he's hit below 180 for 2.5 months. This is Bregman. Bregman is typically a slow starter, but this is the slowest start of his career. If the season ended today, it would be the worst season of Seiya's career. Carson Kelly had 17 homers last year, and just yesterday hit his 3rd of the year only. Like, it's kind of all up and down. It has been like a surprising lack of offense. Like, for how good they were to just completely crater. And it's not just runners in scoring position. That is a factor for sure. But it's overall, like, this offense has just been a Jekyll and Hyde type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been. And like, yeah, like I keep hating, I hate having to keep hammer home the point of like, they're missing that threat. But like, it really does make a difference when a pitcher, like I've heard Jameson Taillon talk about this. I've heard other pitchers talk about where it's like, all right, you look at a lineup and you say, all right, I can't let that guy beat me, or I can't let this guy beat me, or this pocket of the lineup is scary. Like the Cubs lineup, when it is all clicking, as we saw in the first month of the season, the first 30 games of the season, it's a deep lineup, and it's there's no free outs, but there's no at bat where it's like, all right, I got runners on first and second, like with 1 out, and we've got the number 3 hole hitter coming up. This is not a good matchup for me. Like that just doesn't exist with this lineup. It's like, all right, if I pitch to my strength, maybe I can produce an out with this lineup. Whereas like in the past, where it was like Kyle Tucker when he was rolling, or you look at the A's with Nick Kurtz, or you look at Rafael Devers, like those are all guys where it's like, all right, if I mess up or if I do this, like it's a 3-run game, or it's a 3-run home run, and it's a different ball game. Like that just doesn't exist with this Cubs lineup. There is no threat of like this. There's a game changing at bat in this lineup. Michael Busch still might end up hitting 30 home runs, or PCA might end up hitting 20, 25. That's all very well and true. But my concern with it all is like they're digging themselves a hole that like they're going straight back into the wild card situation. And that adds a round of unpredictability to try and advance. At best, yes, right. They're what, 8.5, 9 games back in the division as it stands?
I think they were,
like,
I believe they were 8, but go ahead, keep going. I'll look up.
Yeah, so like you've dug yourself a really deep hole that is not insurmountable by any means. Like you can make up an 8-game deficit with this much time left, but it's not going to be easy. Like Milwaukee's really finding their groove. Their pitching staff's really good. Their defense is solid. Like they're just a scrappy team. So you add all that together, and you're looking at a wild card situation where, all right, does it make sense for this Cubs team then at the deadline to go really all in and try and make a big splash at the deadline for a team that, you know, you add one more round of unpredictability? It just creates so many more ripple effects beyond, like, I agree. Like, I do believe they're going to turn around and they're going to, this is a better offense and they're going to start performing better. But are they digging themselves such a hole that they might get into the playoffs, but they're not really going to put themselves in position to make a deep run like we kind of thought, especially, you know, a month and a half ago.
So they're 7.5 back right now of the Brewers as of Friday morning. They were, before this 30-game downswing, they were 5.5 up on the Brewers. They were 27-12. So they've lost, I mean, what is that, 13 games. They've lost 13 games in the standings over only 30 games. It can happen the other way. We just know from recent history that that's not going to be the case, that the Brewers are not going to have a stretch of 30 games where they go 8 or 22. Like, to expect that is crazy. It's ludicrous because the Brewers just don't have stretches like that. It doesn't matter who's on their roster. It's Luda, yes. But Kyle, were you going to say something else?
I have 2 things, actually. Sorry, 3. Sorry about the Luda. That was uncalled for.
No, it wasn't.
Going off.
Whenever I say ludicrous, I think of that still too, yes.
Yeah, that was like Tourette's. The Cubs have had the lead entering the 9th inning just once in their last 10 games, and that was yesterday. They've had the lead entering the 9th 4 times in their last 24 games, which is kind of crazy. And I guess I was just like looking at their playoff odds from when they were 27-12 to what are they, 35-34 now? Just how much their playoff odds. I mean, I think they were in the upper 90s when that stretch started, and now they're at 42, currently at 42.1%. But what I wanted to talk about was just, I know we're harping so much on the offense and a lot of offensive struggles. I forget who, somebody tweeted out the screenshot, but I'm looking it up on Baseball Reference now. The Cubs starting pitchers and their WAR. Do you know how many of their starting pitchers have a positive WAR?
One. I was going to say 0.
Shota. It's 0.1. That's
because
his
of the last
positive
outing.
WAR. Yeah.
Oh, so Ben Brown's not included in that?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess it's not.
He probably
Ben
doesn't
Brown is
qualify because
not.
he doesn't have enough starts.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He's not a qualified pitcher.
Okay.
Baseball Reference just lists him as a pitcher, not a starting pitcher. So yeah, Ben Brown, I guess, is 1.8. So and he's going
But
to be
of
in
their
the
opening day
rotation.
rotation,
Yes, let's say that.
it's 1. That's insane.
I guess Cade
And then-
Horton 0.2. So Cade Horton of their opening day rotation, Cade
I don't
Horton
count
has the
that.
highest WAR.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colin Ray's -0.6, J-Mo's -0.6, Edward Cabrera -0.7, and Matthew Boyd -0.5. Like it's everything. It's obviously the hitting's a big deal, but the starting pitching obviously has not been what you expected it to be when the season began.
Like I it's fun because like this is the time when you start looking ahead of the trade deadline, right? And you start looking at like, all right, what could the Cubs get or who might be sellers? And I will say it's going to be really hard to determine who is a seller, especially with how the American League is. Like, you don't think the number one target is, or the number one pitcher on the trade market is probably Taylor School, but like the Tigers, I think, are like 4 games out of a wild card spot. Like knowing that this is your last year with him maybe makes it a little tougher to sell, just given that you have an ace and you want to try and make a run. And you throw in Framber Valdez, and it becomes a different equation. But like even in that situation, like we talked about it like 1 or 2 podcasts ago, like what would it take for Taylor Skubal, and like would the Cubs make sense? And I'm beginning to think like why would you want to trade for Taylor Skubal if
Exactly
you're the
what I was gonna
Cubs? Because yes, if you do get in the playoffs and you do get in the wild card, you would love to have Taylor Skubal that game 1, and then you're 1 win away from advancing. But then you probably don't use Taylor Skubal again until probably game 3 or 4 of the NLDS. Which first of all, who knows if you get to game 4, and in a game 3 you might be down 2 games already, where you're playing for your life. So like that's just a whole nother equation that you want to do. You get into, and then you're trading away from a farm system that's already really weak and really thin, and you're gonna have to rely on it here in the coming years because of you're losing Seiya Suzuki and Ian Happ to free agency. You're losing a lot of your pitching staff to free agency, and I think pitching staff in the offseason is one area where they're going to use some of their financial resources to improve. But like you're going to have to rely on the farm system. That if you just keep trading it away, then you're going to start running into a situation that you were in 2019, 2020, and 2021, where you have nothing coming up to replenish this, and you have to go through what you essentially did at the 2021 deadline.
Yeah, I think that's really that is, Andy, the main point of like anybody who thinks that reinforcements are coming. It's the way it's shaping up. It's much more likely that it's going to be trade deadline like last year, where Michael Soroka and Andrew Kittredge, guys that probably most Cubs fans had not heard of before the Cubs traded for him, they're going to make moves like that. Than Skubal, because exactly as you said, Andy, like why would you want to go all in? And Jed was talking about like some of the calculus. He mentioned this Friday, Andy, when you and I were both there and in the media scrum. Like part of the calculus is you have to. It's very related relative to the first round bye. If you feel like you're going to be a top 2 seed in the NL and you're going to get a first round bye, then it does make a lot more sense to go all in for a guy like Skubal for everything you just laid out, because then you don't have this random 3-game wild card, which is pretty random. And if you happen to not be at home, that's extremely difficult and relatively unlikely that you're going to move on. But like, okay, so you're in the NLDS, then yes, you can line your team up. You can get healthy. You can have Skubal pitch game 1, possibly even game 5 or game 1 in the NLCS, whatever it is. If you're in the wild card, yeah, it's just a lot more difficult. And so if a team is going to go all in on Skubal, it's going to be a team like the Dodgers or Brewers probably as of right now in the NL, right? Like maybe we see other teams kind of getting in the mix. I don't know. And you're right too, that it would have to be the Tigers would have to fall out of it more. And by the way, Skubal's about to return tomorrow. He's supposed to start on Saturday, coming back from this like nano elbow surgery, whatever it was, the Skubal scope that they're calling it now. Like it's some like Avengers quantum physics stuff that he's able to like come back from. But either way, like it is the way the Cubs have shown, and I think that's what the last month has really taught us about this team, is that this does not appear to be a team to go all in on. It's a team that is capable of making a run, sure. And any team is capable, once you get into the postseason tournament, any team is capable of getting hot and going all the way.
For sure.
But this isn't a team that you go all in on and you mortgage the future and sacrifice all these prospects for. So I do agree with you. And I think that's one of the big points of like, that's what this season so far has taught me is I don't think the season's over. I'm not waving a white flag and like, the Cubs are miserable. They're not going to make the playoffs. I do still think that they're going to make a strong push for the playoffs, but you just cannot go all in. And my tune was totally different 30 days ago or 30 games ago, I guess, 34.
So even 15 games ago.
Yeah, true. Yes. Well, 15 games ago was during that 10-game losing streak, right?
Yeah,
in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But your point is valid. A couple weeks ago, I still would have said the same thing. Yeah.
I just want to add one quick note too, like on the trade deadline, the price to pay for even like you might say like, oh, the Michael Soroka, it was a bad trade. The Soroka trade was a bad trade, and Kittredge, like whatever. Like the price to pay for trade deadline help is just extremely high, even for those caliber of players nowadays. Because if you look at Andrew Kittredge, who they got,
Gene's back.
Gene's back. We got a little echo. It was throwing me off, but we got him back.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say with the trade deadline, the price that you pay for acquiring a Michael Soroka was high, right? They ended up trading Ronnie Cruz to the Orioles, or to the Nationals, excuse me, who's now a top 100 prospect. For Andrew Kittredge, they traded over Wilfred De La Cruz, teenager who was in the Dominican Complex League, I think, at that point. He is the number 20 prospect for the Orioles now. So, like, if you're going to trade for anything, it's going to be a high price.
Eugene, we were just talking about like whether the Cubs go like all in on the deadline or not. How is this last few weeks changed for you in terms of how you view the season overall?
How many no trade clauses do they have? Anybody know?
I can look that up, but I don't know.
It's got to be.
It's
got to be.
Nico, Seiya, Hap,
Taillon.
Taillon's got one, yeah. Pretty sure he's got one. So you got quite a few.
Just, man, do you guys remember the end of the it had to be 24, might have been 23, time flies for me, man. So it was either 23 or 24, end of the year presser, we're in there with Jed, and I asked him, like, when you look around at all of the teams that are playing playoff baseball right now, they all have a stud. And I went around to each team and I named at least one stud off of each team. I think this might have been when Soto was still with the Yankees. And I'm like, there has to come a time when that's a priority. There has to become a time where that's a priority. And when you look around the league now, guys that are getting paid, obviously Ohtani with the 700, that's a stretch. Soto with the 700, that's a stretch. But when you look around and you see these guys getting the 300s and the 400s, it's like those are the guys, even if they're not performing at, the top of their ability right now. Those are the guys that you have to have in the lineup, man. It's a must, bro. So when coming back this year, I didn't expect much more than last year. I didn't expect much more. You rent Kyle Tucker, you lose Kyle Tucker, you sign Alex Bregman. That's cool, but it's like it's really like a flip flop. You got Edward Cabrera. It's not like you went out and spent a bunch of money on Edward Cabrera. You can never have enough arms. I just knew that wasn't gonna be enough. I didn't expect Justin Steele to come back and be the Justin Steele that we saw in the Cy Young running. Kay Horton, yeah, he had a great year last year, but we know he had problems. I didn't expect him to come back and be that horse. So I really, to be honest with you guys, I expected them to be a playoff team. I expected them to maybe win the division just because I didn't expect Milwaukee to come back and be, obviously the Milwaukee Brewers we've seen for the last 8 or 9 years. So again, looking forward, man, looking at that trade deadline, do you go all in? I think you look towards the future, man. I didn't see those guys doing much more than they did last year, so I wouldn't go all in. I think it's just another issue for Jed that I've always had about him. You gotta go big, man. You gotta go hard or go home. And I just don't think they did enough to one up anything they did last year. So with those no trade clauses, there's really not much you can do.
No, for sure. There's not. And Eugene, we might need you to mute when you're not talking. There's an echo coming through.
Okay.
See if that works.
Okay.
All right, I think that's a little bit better right now. Yeah, technology is not our friend in this pod. But one last thing that I kind of wanted to get all your guys' opinion on. So I was talking about this yesterday when I was at CHGO, and we were just looking at the team overall. And you look at last year, right? Like last year they made it to the NLDS. They were a win away from the NLCS. Like you said, Eugene, like they go and retool, and you you expected that they were going to be better. But last year, part of their success, a big part of their success, was Michael Bush took a major step forward, exceeded expectations. PCA exceeded expectations. Cade Horton came up. You didn't really have expectations preseason for him. He comes up and he's an ace at the end of the year. Matthew Boyd exceeds expectations. Who on the 2026 team in the Cubs has exceeded expectations this year? I can point to one guy. Ben Brown has exceeded expectations. Like, and I was thinking about this because we just had conferences for my kids for daycare this week, and it's like, not delivering expectations, meets expectations, or exceeds. Ben Brown is the only guy I got in the exceeds expectations. If I'm doing the daycare rating for the 2026 Cubs, meets expectations. I think Ian Happ is probably the only like regular, maybe Daniel Palencia a little bit in there, but like Happ has struggled with runners in scoring position, I know, but he's on pace for 35 homers. His career high is 25. He's having the best power season of his career. Maybe Michael Bush, just because he's been better of late, but he's still only on pace for like 20, 22 homers, which is a far cry from the 34 last year. But everybody else on this roster, whether it's because of injuries or ineffectiveness or whatever, everybody else on the team, I would say, is not living up to their expectations. And that's the why. That's why they are where they are, is because they have 24 to 28 guys, however many you want to look at, that are not living up to expectations because Matthew Boyd's been hurt. Cade Horton is hurt and out for the rest of the year. Dansby's hitting 179 or whatever. Nico's down. All of this stuff. So, like, I'm just curious, and Eugene, we'll start with you. Like, what do you make of that? Like, what do you agree with that assessment? One, that, in terms of the meeting expectations or above, and like, two, why does that happen? Because like every year you need guys to exceed your projections if you want to become a team that wins 95 or 100 games. And they just haven't had that this year. They've somehow are above 500 despite the fact that like almost nobody is meeting expectations.
I think you're 100% on point as far as the one guy that has exceeded expectations, and maybe expectation is the word. What was the expectation coming into the season? Was it to obviously you want to one up and go a step further, so that would be the NLCS. But again, when you look at that lineup, man, it's like passing the buck. It's like next man up or keeping the train moving. That's the type of team that the Cubs have. It's like guys have to do that thing and keep the train moving. Nobody is gonna send that train back to the train station by themselves. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm going to continue to harp on that, man. Like, you have to have the one stud in the lineup that can carry you when you have these type of lulls during the season, and they just don't have that. Now, do we expect all of those guys to struggle at the same time? Of course not. They got a bunch of guys whose baseball cards, when you turn them over, they're steady guys. They're steady guys, but when bad luck, when I would love to know what Jed Hoyer and Craig Counsell's conversation was coming into this season and the expectation, because I feel like a lot of guys, they're feeling the pressure. Maybe that's what it is. I'll use pressure, not even expectation. I'll use pressure, and I think the pressure is on. I don't know if it's if it is, obviously a lot of those guys, I'm sure they read social media. They know what's being said, and I don't know if the pressure's gotten to them. I just think I'm with you, Tony. I think it's just a string of bad luck, and obviously bad luck doesn't last that long. It seems like it's just lasted a little bit longer for these guys. So maybe a little bit of home cooking is what they need. See what they do out in San Francisco this weekend. Come back home, they get to sleep in their own beds. They get to get some home cooked meals, and we'll see if some home cooking can get these guys back on track. But time is ticking, brother. That's about all I can tell you.
I was going to say one thing, like tied into what you had asked Jed a couple years ago, Gene, when you asked him about. I vividly remember, because this is, I thought was like he gave the number one quote of that offseason was to that question when you asked him about like do you need that one stud, or like do you have that stud? And he pointed out how like, all those teams that have these studs, and I think it was the year that Bobby Witt was like essentially an MVP candidate. It was like all these guys exceed expectations, and that was the quote. Remember, it was like you need guys to outperform expectations, and he got crushed for it, and kind of rightly so, right? Like you expect the Chicago Cubs, big market, go out and sign Shohei Ohtani, who was coming up that I believe that was the year he was coming up, free agency year, or Juan Soto. Like that's what you expect the Chicago Cubs to do, but they've obviously proven that that's not what they're going to do, and that's not how they're going to play in free agency, which is fine. Like if that's what you're going to do. But then you have to create environments to allow players to exceed expectations. And to Tony's point, they don't have that environment. They don't have that situation where players are exceeding expectations. So now you're expecting them to perform at their base levels, which in the case of Michael Bush last year was a pretty darn high level. In the case of PCA was a pretty darn high level. And now that they're not meeting it, well, now the margin of error is just that much slimmer for everyone else. And it's creating just this ripple effect of like, now everyone's struggling and now you're on this cascade that you're on of struggle. And that's just created this effect where the team has gone from, okay, now everyone's meeting their expectations. You're 27-12 to now you're at 5 or just above 500 because people aren't meeting these lofty expectations that, frankly, like we didn't know if Michael Bush was going to be a 34 home run hitter. Like maybe that's his career year. Like maybe that is his ceiling. And now you're expecting him to be at his ceiling every single season from there on out. Same thing with PCA. Like you just don't know because they're so young, because they don't have as much experience. Like you just don't know. Whereas like with Alex Bregman, you have a track record of like, all right, this is who he is. Dansby Swanson, this is who he is. And obviously they're not performing at that level, but you have that base level of what they are. Whereas with the younger guys, maybe you don't have any expectations. So that's kind of what I thought on that point. And I'll throw one other name who I think actually has exceeded expectations, and maybe you'll be a little bit surprised. But I think Jacob Webb has exceeded expectations. He was signed to like I believe it was only like around $1 million. So you're expecting him to be, essentially a bullpen guy, and he's become a leverage guy. I think he's been a really nice addition to the bullpen, and really the only offseason addition that's been in the bullpen that's been good for the Cubs. So that's the only other name that I would say exceeds expectations.
No, I think that's a good one. Tough week maybe because he
Yeah.
basically was saddled with the loss on Wednesday.
Yeah, I always say these on after like they had like their one bad game of the year, so maybe bad timing, but yes.
Well, yeah, Eugene, before we wrap up and let you go, I'm curious your thoughts. Where does the season end up? And you don't have to like make a bold prediction, but just how much has like the last stretch changed things for you? Do you still feel the same way about the 2026 Cubs that you did earlier in the year? And do you think that this season still ends in playoffs and possibly a deep?
Well, as much as I continue to harp on the fact that time is ticking, there is still a lot of baseball left. And I do think once, it's summertime now. So summer is officially here. It's going to turn up at Wrigley. And I do think, these guys are talented enough where things will turn around. I think once they get a little bit, just a smidge bit healthier. I don't know. What's any update on Justin Steele? You guys got is there anything new?
He's going to be around the team, but not going to be. I don't even know when he's throwing.
September,
like,
maybe like the earliest. Would probably, it seems like.
So they don't have like a throwing progression or whatever for sure. But they said he's going to be around the team. I think starting on like the next homestand, and he'll start doing some rehab work with the team.
Well, that start of pitching, that rotation, it looks like Ben Brown is going to have to do some heavy lifting. And, maybe they do go out. And I know Sandy Alcantara's been the name that we've been hearing the last year and a half. Maybe they do find a way to go out, make a splash and get him. Or, but they do need some reinforcements up there. I do think the hitting will turn around again. Those guys are talented enough where the bad luck is going to wear off one of these days and they'll get back to it. But I think the fact that they did start off 27-12 does give them a bit of leeway coming down the stretch. Maybe all-star break is needed. Maybe you get away from the game a little bit, come back, recharge, refreshed, and, get ready for that second, maybe not second half, but that second stretch. And I do think, I think they have played themselves out of being division winners, but I definitely think, they'll be there, around wild card time. Got to watch out for the Cardinals. Nobody expected them to be playing the way they're playing. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, whatever. But again, I do think these guys, they'll be around the wild card situation. And, at that point, it's all about the pitcher, man. The defense is, it's been stellar. I know PCA had a couple mishaps after the little situation with the White Sox, but PCA is a plus defender. All he had to do was just get back on his square. So the defense is, I know the defense is, the one standard that they do have that will be able to keep them in ball games. And I do think guys like Dansby Swanson and, the guys that are really struggling, I think Nico is going to come out of this. And, when you look at the end of the year, he'll be back to 285, 290. And I think they'll find a way. I think Craig Counsell, he takes a lot of flack for, not being a high energy guy in the clubhouse. But you guys know him. I tell, all of the fans that hit me up, like, he's not the guy that you see just standing there, with this blank look on his face when they pan to him, during the games. Craig has some fire to him, man. And I don't know how it comes about and how it comes out with the guys in the clubhouse, but I do think there's some fire to him. So he'll light a fire, and I think they'll be around when it's wild card time. And then, right about then, man, anything goes. So we'll see. But I'm, never counting those guys out. They're definitely talented.
Yeah, we'll see for sure. And we'll have it all covered for you guys on the Windy City Breakdown here. We're going to wrap this episode. We're going to have Eugene back and talk some 2016 memories later in the year. Just reflect on, obviously, what was probably the best year for anybody in Cubs franchise history, a year that certainly exceeded expectations in a lot of ways, or at least met them, depending on where you're at. But for Andy and Kyle and Eugene, I'm Tony. Thanks as always for listening and tuning in.